What's up, everybody? This is a very special Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You know that every Wednesday we bring you the Fantasy Football Power Hour. Not one of, not a, but the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. You can go out there 7 days a week, indoor and outdoor seating, and takeout and delivery by calling 315-487-2222. It's where we do our drafts, and this year, Sunday, August 29th, all day long from when they open, before they open, until probably when they close. Your boy's going to be there setting up shop. My office, away from my office, is going to be on site, on location, Sunday, August 29th, all day long as we pull off 4 leagues for 4 drafts live on site at the Wildcat. And I cannot wait to do it. Mike Sofka and I are always here giving you our advice on the beautiful world of fantasy football. And today is just Mike and I. So typically 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Well, today we're starting at 9 o'clock together because I felt the need to do that. And I felt the need to have this gentleman here with me in the full flesh. You hear his voice all the time, but now it's time to see the face. He's combed the hair back, slicked it back, Leonardo DiCaprio'd the hair, and then kept us with the nice beard that's been going on for a long time here. So without further ado, Mr. Sofka, how are you?
Doing wonderful. How are you, Dan?
Doing very well, man, and I'm having a lot of fun. Happy to be here today, hanging out here where sports meets life inside the Cafe Cabal Studios. We're here to talk about fantasy football and all things fantasy. Let everybody know how they can get in touch with you. Normally, I give you that intro, but I know you've made some cool changes that you want to let everybody know about.
Yeah, well, most people just go right to the website, halloffamefantasyfootball.com, but now I've changed up the naming on some of the things. So if you're looking for us on YouTube, it's simple, Winning Fantasy Football. If you're looking for us on Facebook, it's simple, Winning Fantasy Football. And if you're looking for us on the web, you can even type in Winning Fantasy Football, and that'll take you right to me as well. So pretty much you have to remember what we do. And what we do is win at fantasy football. So Winning Fantasy Football, easy to remember.
Yeah, and a very easy way to get in touch. So I definitely implore everybody to go and check out Winning Fantasy Football. And obviously, our group is right here on Facebook, so you can check us out here. You're watching us on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as on wakeupcalldt.com's homepage, mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. You're listening, and on 2 parts in Facebook, facebook.com/livenowdt and facebook.com/wakeupcalldt. So, Mike, we've talked about a lot of things. We've done a lot of things here on the show, and we've gotten people ready. We've broken down every quarterback situation of the AFC, everyone in the NFC. We've done that with running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends together in the receiving core. We have done mock draft 1.0, mock draft 2.0, and today we're kind of going to cover a lot of, pieces that are kind of around. So you had the chance to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars training camp, and that's where I want to start. So how were things? I mean, obviously a team I have covered for many, many years, more than a decade. And so what was it like to be at camp?
It was interesting. It was interesting because it was a hot day. It was really hot. And, I could see it wearing on the players, but of course they took, the responsible hydration breaks and so forth. And, but pretty much it was a full go. I got to see Tebow in action with the tight ends. I got to see, Trevor Lawrence, who didn't look as crisp as I thought he should have. And one drive during practice, he had 4 incompletes in a row. And then the following day, when I wasn't there, he had, I think, 3 interceptions. So, but these things are going to happen. These things are going to, come about slowly. It's not like Trevor Lawrence all of a sudden forgot how to play quarterback. This is a guy who is a good football player, and he's going to be a good football player. He did bounce back, and he had some other good looks. But I got real good looks at a lot of the players. Laquan Treadwell looked real good. Philip Dorsett looked good. James Robinson looked real good. Gardner Minshew looked better than Trevor Lawrence at Saturday's practice when I was there. But they didn't have pads on either. So I can change once you're in full pads. But Travis Etienne, I saw him well, and I saw Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence connect a couple of times in 7-on-7 and in the 2-minute drill. So that was encouraging. You could see like the future. But then there was times at the corner of the end zone where Minshew found Marvin Jones, and then I saw Trevor Lawrence and Minshew both hit Laviska Shenault. I saw Tebow drop a pass. I saw Tebow make a couple good catches. It was interesting. It was an interesting day. It was very hot.
Yeah.
I did see Josh Lambo hit at least a 55-yard field goal. It would have been good for much further than at least another 10 yards. So that was encouraging too. So, these dog days of the heat and the summer and everything, this is what gets you those underdog victories later on when you can pull it together. If you can, a lot of coaches say, oh, the heat, you can get over the heat. They say it's mental. I don't know about you, but when I'm hot, I'm sweating and it's physical.
Yeah.
But I can see how they just try to keep things moving and get those hydration breaks in. And it was a good time. It was good to see football. It was good to see people around football. So hopefully that'll continue to be the case here this season.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, you got to see some different things happen, as far as Gardner Minshew and how he looks. People forget that this man is still on the team because, after really a season of being the guy, he's been thrown in the garbage in a lot of people's minds because they drafted Trevor Lawrence. So bring me into it. You said that he looks good. What did you overall from Gardner Minshew? What were you able to see, and why did he impress you?
You could tell he had a better grip on the offense. You could tell that confidence, little swagger, not so much in his walk or in his mannerisms, but I mean just his ability to get the ball in a tight cover corner by Shaquille Griffin was covering Marvin Jones, and Marvin Jones would pull one down. Let's see. I think who else did? I think it was Laviska Shenault did one as well. And Laquan Treadwell, he looked real good. And he's almost a forgotten guy. I almost forgot he was even on the roster. But if you want to see video of all these things, you could see some photos, and you could see a blog piece I put up on the website. So you go to HallOfFameFantasyFootball.com or WinningFantasyFootball.com. Same thing, take you to the same place. But you could see a blog piece I did with some photos. But there's also connected on the YouTube channel, Winning Fantasy Football, or on the website. You can see 10-minute sights and sounds of the Jaguar practice there. I put it together. I put names by stuff so you could see what's going on. It's only been up for about 15 hours. Already has over 500 views. So I guess it must be okay. I mean, people are starting to look at it.
Yeah, and like you said, people can go and check it out, and you being able to be there and to share that with us. I mean, having yourself there, able to be at practice, that is something we didn't have last year. That was something that was stolen away from us that we never thought would go away in a year that's really made no type of sense whatsoever. With people buying so much toilet paper, it made me question whether or not they were eating it. So, so many things going on. There was no Lysol. People were bathing in Purell, and here you are, and you're able to go to practice, to actually see camp, physically be there, something that the fans never thought would be taken away from them. What can you say about that moment for you to step onto the field and to actually get to do it again? Because, again, I'm hoping that people appreciate some of these things that maybe they didn't think about because it was just second nature that they could go to camp in the past.
Well, they always say you don't know what you got till it's gone, and that's surely what happened. I just think it was, it felt like riding a bike. They say there's a few things you never forget. One of them is how to ride a bike. So, maybe I haven't ridden a bike in a couple of years, no big deal. I was able to get right back on the bike. So it was just good to see the interaction, the structure of a football practice. The heat played a factor like I talked about, but it was good to see people. There was a group of fans there, I guess, when Trevor Lawrence was in school at Clemson.
Yeah.
It looks like a Clemson thing because it was like a piece that you put over, like a scarf you put over your forehead. I guess he does that with the long hair. And it had the Clemson color 16, and then it had these big golden locks hanging from it, and there were guys and women wearing this. So it was pretty funny. It looked pretty cool to see. People are into it. People are ready to get back to football, and hopefully we'll be able to have full attendance this season.
Yeah, that's something that people are excited about. People want to see, they want to see the game again. They want to live in that world again. And some fans were in the stands last year, depending on where you went. And Mike, for you, I mean, what can you say about that side of it? Because it was not fair to a lot of people that we had to be in this situation that we were in last year, where if you were in a certain state, there could be fans in the stands, and if you were in another state, there wasn't. Just what you could say about that side of it, that some fans got to have some semblance of a season, while other fans really just sat there and were I mean, watching from home all year long, and really didn't have, the opportunity that other people had. I mean, it made for a very interesting year, and made for a very unfair year, because, like I said, some people got to enjoy it and some people didn't, which, really to me, took away from a lot of things, because, obviously everybody wanted to be there, but only a few fans could be in certain arenas, and in other arenas, no fans could be there.
Well, it is what it is. I mean, I got news for you. You know, this life isn't fair. I hate to sound so crass with that, but that's simply what it is. Thankfully, the NFL didn't do things like, well, they can't have fans in Seattle, and in Jacksonville they can have 10,000. So to make it equal, we're going to tell Jacksonville fans not to be there. It is what it is, and it's going to even take another step up or a belt tightening this year with the forfeits. There's not only is there another game this year, not only is there another week, there's 18 weeks, but there's also there will be some teams that will forfeit games this year, unfortunately. Just the way the COVID protocols are, they expect all the players to be vaccinated. If a player is not vaccinated and he's a close contact to someone that's tested positive, you're out for a minimum of 10 days. So, I mean, this is going to have impact, because there's guys that won't get the shot. There's guys that insist on the shot. So it is what it is. But I just, I even put something up on Facebook for a while, and it was ironic to me that a league that doesn't want you to take anything into your body that shouldn't be into your body now wants you to put something into your body. So whether you believe in vaccinations, whether you believe in this vaccination or not, I just find it odd that they can force you to put something in your body, especially when all these years they're telling you, don't put this, don't put that, don't put this in your body. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. You got the Vikings just picking up a couple guys today, guys that nobody's ever heard of, Danny Etling and somebody else that I even never heard of, because they're down to one quarterback there in Minnesota due to this testing. So there could be a situation where we have teams not only have some games moved, but I don't think they're going to be as flexible with movement in those games as they were last year, being now that there's a vaccine. I think part of the deal is this could be locker room problem, is what I'm saying, because some guys are going to say, oh, because you didn't get vaccinated, now we forfeited a game, now we're missing the playoffs by that game. That affects people's money, that affects people's future contracts. It's going to be for an interesting year. So, Minnesota, the other guy, I just looked it up, the other guy they picked up, not only Danny Etling, but they picked up Case Cookus, who I've never heard of, and their number one quarterback right now is Jake Browning. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Tell me how that tastes.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, being in this situation, where the NFL, essentially, you talk about herd immunity, and I was at the ACC kickoff, and they were talking about 85% of the team being vaccinated, like trying to get the numbers to a certain place. You can't force anybody to get a vaccination, right? You can't force anybody year to year to get a flu shot. Now, when you go to college, they do force you to get a meningitis shot. You can't come on campus without a meningitis shot. So, things have been done before in that respect. And I think, like, if you're in school, you have to get a chicken pox shot so that you don't pick it up if for whatever, if you haven't had it before. So, there are ways that they have tested this in schools before, and ways they've kind of made it mandatory that, hey, if you want to do this, this is what you have to do. And we kind of just grew up thinking, okay, well, that's fine, because we thought that would, those are the rules. But with flu shots, it's not. And with this vaccination and how quick it came out, and a lot of questions of it, and whether or not people,
Well,
trust it, and because there's different ones, you could get Moderna, you could get Pfizer, you could get Johnson and Johnson. There's a lot of questions, and still not a ton of answers. What were you going to say?
well, I was just going to say it's technically they got the vaccine out so quick because they were able to cut through a lot of FDA red tape, and part of that is this is for an emergency use only. So this is not a regular vaccine. It's been through clinical trials and peer reviews and so forth. So it's the type of thing. It's emergency use only because supposedly there's no cure, but again, there's other therapeutics and things that are out there, and without getting into too much about vaccines and all that, it's really about how it's going to affect the game. How's it going to affect your fantasy team? I would suggest getting with your commissioner of your league if you're not the commissioner and coming up with some sort of plan. I did this last year and adjusted the rules in some of the leagues, and you had to a certain point with the COVID listing, and it looked like they were going to have guys on COVID, so you would put them in IR spots. That may lend to you creating more IR spots in your league or more bench spots or something to adjust, because what you don't want is you don't want a guy sitting down and that to affect your fantasy year. That then all of a sudden now you're thrust into the middle of the vaccine debate. Just let's just play fantasy football. Let's just adjust accordingly and make it so that we can still have a good year.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and you bring up a good point here in trying to prepare your league for a situation like this. I have one injured reserve spot that I put, so there's 18 spots in your roster that we draft, and every week you play one team quarterback, which means if the quarterback goes down, you get the backup. So you play one team quarterback, two running back, two receiver, one tight end, two flex, which could be a running back, receiver, or tight end in my league, a kicker, and a D. So you have 10, and you have 8 on your bench. If one of those people is injured and they're out, you could put them in the injured reserve, and then it frees up a spot on the bench, and you can pick somebody up. It gets confusing in some of it because we do it through ESPN, and it's been great for us. But there's a thing where I tried to take Christian McCaffrey off and take him out of IR, and it was so difficult to get him out, and then who do you put in and whatnot. And obviously once you take the person out of IR, you're going to have too many on your roster, so you got to get rid of somebody. But the reality of it all is you bringing up that point of having multiple injured reserve spots could be beneficial, because if you have a guy that's injured and 2 that are out with COVID, now that allows them to pick up 3 people and not just one person. So I think, the implementation of more injured reserve spots for the COVID, reserve COVID list could be beneficial if somebody's going to be out, and if they're designated as such, so that you can move them into that spot. Because last year there was a bunch of guys, on Jacksonville, Raquel Armstead was on the reserve COVID list a bunch of times. So if he was on your roster, you were essentially moving him 4 or 5 times the season. And if you had Christian McCaffrey and Raquel Armstead, then you got to pick which one you're going to put somewhere. And obviously, Christian's far better in fantasy, but just as an example, if you could put both of them on your injured reserve and not have to lose anybody, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, and look at the impact that had on Raquel Armstead. He was thought to be the leader in that backfield going in once Leonard Fournette was jettisoned. So, look what it did. It opened the door for an undrafted James Robinson, who went in there and proved his worth. He went in there. Now, mind you, they did draft a Travis Etienne, but Travis Etienne has a different skill set altogether. So this is the type thing where these backs should complement each other. But we may not be talking about James Robinson. James Robinson may not have helped people win their championships last year. Again, but that was the impact of one player. And it not only impacted the NFL, it impacted fantasy football as well. So, just keep careful watch on that stuff. Have a plan going in. Even after your draft, look at some players and go, okay, put some guys on your watch list right after your draft. I don't know if enough people do this. Right after the draft, everything's computerized. So once everything's input into your system, if you have an offline draft, or once the draft is over, you can go back in and search through the people who didn't get drafted. and see how they are represented on your cheat sheet so that maybe you keep those people in mind, click them over onto your watch list and go, hey, if I need a receiver, this might be a guy I'm going to look at. This way you're not frantically looking. You already have a loose plan together. And then a lot of people got the fever. I got the fever. I'm playing in a ton of leagues every year, so I get it. So it helps speed things up a bit when you already have a sense of direction. Now it's just fine tuning it.
Yeah, and so I mean, it really is. You have to. I mean, your preparedness of knowing the backup to the backup to the backup, which Mike and I set you up to do, which is why you should go back and watch on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as on the fantasy football tab on wakeupcalldt.com, the archive of us talking about every quarterback position, every backfield, every receiving core, because we went team by team, division by division, and spoke about we spoke about multiple players there. So yeah, here's the running back, here's the backup, here's another guy, here are the 4 or 5 receivers, here's the backup quarterback situation. Mike and I dive deep into these conversations. So you might be listening to Minnesota and we're telling you about the 5th wide receiver, and let's say, God forbid, Thielen goes down and Jefferson goes down, and you got to know that the next couple people up. Well, Mike and I might be talking about the 5th string receiver in this broadcast from a couple months before the season, and that 5th string guy that we told you about ends up being the starter, and then the other guys are out for 2 weeks, and look at what he's doing, and you're getting 25, 27 points from him in fantasy every single week, and people can't figure out how you're beating them. We're trying to prepare you for the backup to the backup to the backup. If you don't have a plan K in fantasy football or a plan Z, that's what we're here for. We're here that you didn't get this and you didn't get that, so how do we figure it out? You have to plan this going in. Know what your league has. Team quarterback is what I've always done because it's more beneficial. If somebody comes in and when somebody goes, oh, well, I have Tom Brady and they sat him the last week, or, I have Aaron Rodgers and they sat him the week before the playoffs, to know who the backup is it serviceable? Does it make sense for you to have? And how you're going to kind of go about that, and to know the backup running back. And is the backup running back a 1-2 punch, or is he somebody that we're going to see sparingly? Raquel Armstead, like you said, James Robinson was the 4th or 5th string guy. So, and he was an undrafted free agent last year out of Illinois State. And then he gets over 1,000 yards rushing and is on a very short list in Jacksonville as a rookie. You never know, but so many places are going to tell you the names that you know. So many places are going to tell you the starters, and they're going to rank the starters. Mike and I talk about the starters, the backups, the backup to the backups, the rookies, the free agents, the people that came out of retirement. We're here to talk to you about all of it to the best of our ability. And if we miss somebody, shoot us a message. Go to the Winning Fantasy Football group. Ask us a question. Come on the show every Wednesday on Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT and YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. And mixlr.com/WakeUpCallDT, which all have their own chat rooms, and send us a thought there and ask us, as people have, what do we think about this in a PPR league, in a non-PPR, in a dynasty, in a redraft? How do we assess this person? Is this backup important enough to take? Will Jamal Williams have a better season than A.J. Dillon now that they're in different places? Questions that you have about your physical, personal team. That's what we're here for. Because we're going to talk about everybody, and I think Mike and I dive really deep. We dig tunnels, that are deeper than the drug tunnel that goes to California. But beyond that, we want to answer your personal questions about your situation and what you need to do in your league. And we do that as best we can. We've gotten them from North Dakota. We've gotten them all over the place before. So we're happy to help you however and whenever we can. But we can't help you if you don't follow us, and we can't help you if you don't ask the question. So make sure that you do that. Mike, speaking of coming out of retirement, I'd love to get your thoughts on the man, this gentleman who said this statement, quote, I'm just going to stay ready. I want to make sure I'm very clear. I'm not predicting I will play in December or January for that matter. 1, you've got to have somebody who wants you, and 2, it's got to be right. But I have not completely ruled that out, end quote. That coming from a 5-time Pro Bowler who's 5th in NFL history with 63,440 passing yards. 16 seasons with the Chargers, 1 season with the Colts, And the man who goes to Indianapolis, who couldn't stay healthy in Philly, gets injured almost immediately here in his duties of organized and training camp and all that. And now the guy they had last year, before they went and got Carson Wentz, could be coming out of retirement. And with all due respect, it would be the perfect time to do it because he's probably going to play this year knowing Carson Wentz, but God willing, Carson will stay healthy. Thoughts on Phillip Rivers and a potential comeback?
Yeah, again, that's, something that you got to look at ahead of time. You look at Carson Wentz, they say this injury may have happened technically when he was in high school, but the bone had shifted and it was all right. And then he took a step a certain way and it just made it break completely. They say 5 to 12 weeks. 5 to 12 weeks is a long range there. Okay, so 5 to 12 weeks. Well, I got news for you. In 5 weeks, we're in week 1 in the NFL already. And then it's going to take time to get up to game speed and get the confidence in that foot. So I think without a doubt, it's closer to 12 weeks. I don't think Jacob Eason is the answer, but he might have to be for the short term. There's talk that Sam Ehlinger may get an extended look. Well, Jacob Eason was just a rookie a year ago. So no, I don't buy that yet, although I am a fan of Sam Ehlinger. And now the Phillip Rivers coming back into the fold, I think is the most probable. But there's also been some grumblings about the quarterback situation in Chicago. Because remember, Chicago has Foles. Well, they also have somebody else there. They have Dalton. They have the new guy, Justin Fields. So there's talk being that Foles has that familiarity with Frank Wright and has that familiarity with Carson Wentz. Do we dare see another situation like that was in Philly a while back? Now, there's some monetary things that come into play here. One, he's due I think it's $8 million this year, and I think a $4 million roster bonus as well. So those things would have to be worked out. But you see, there's some options, and there's a fine example right there of what we're talking about with fantasy football. And they say sports imitates life. Well, fantasy football imitates real football, whereas we're talking about being ready, look at your options, get things together. That's exactly what the Colts are doing. They're getting their act together here because they see the writing on the wall, and this could be longer than it is shorter. So I think, without a doubt, Phillip Rivers is the better answer. I don't think he's better quarterback than somebody else, but I do think he's the better answer. I think Nick Foles is going to be a train wreck for Carson Wentz and his psyche further down the road.
Yeah, and I mean, should anybody be surprised that Carson Wentz is hurt again? That's just, I mean, the Colts fans, this is like a punch in the gut to see something like this and to have to deal with it because it's probably the first thing on the minds of some of these people. Now, I do want to look at another person who is moving forward here. And this is going to be interesting. So the Baltimore Ravens this season, I mean, this is obviously a story that's a couple months old here, but just something to look at. Alejandro Villanueva, who is a Pro Bowl offensive tackle that used to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, signed a 2-year contract with the Baltimore Ravens to protect Lamar Jackson. $14 million, $8 million fully guaranteed is what we have right now. The Ravens added Villanueva to play right tackle and replace Orlando Brown Jr., who they traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. Villanueva is 32. He started at left tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers for the past 6 seasons, and so now he's made a move. We continue to see Baltimore on the radar that there's an expectation with Lamar Jackson there. They brought in Sammy Watkins. They have Marquise Hollywood Brown. They have Miles Boykin. They have Mark Andrews, who took a dip in fantasy last year. They still have Gus Edwards. They still have J.K. Dobbins in the backfield. Do you believe that the Ravens are going to provide fantasy value? Do you believe that the Ravens can get the ball where it needs to go? Are the Ravens for real? Should they be taken seriously?
Rashad Bateman. That's the answer to your question. Your season is going to be as Rashad Bateman's season goes. Marquise Brown right now is being hindered by a bad hamstring. And when you're a speedster, when you're a guy who relies on your hamstring to make your living and to help your team win games, They're bringing him along back slowly. They think it's worse than they originally thought it was. So Rashad Bateman could step right in and step up. Now, this is a guy who I was kind of high on coming in. You know, this is a situation where Rashad Bateman can step in and maybe pull like a Justin Jefferson did. Yeah, is that likely? No, but it looks like the moon, the stars, and the planets are lining up. The one reason why he's not going to have numerically that much of an impact as Justin Jefferson did last year is simply based on the offense that they run in Baltimore. It's more of a run. It's more of a, you know, hey, we got the quarterback here that can run the ball. We've got running backs that can run the ball. We don't have to throw the ball. You know, I think it was Lou Holtz that said years ago that there's, you know, only three things can happen when you throw the ball, and two of them are bad. So with good defense and with the opportunity to continue to ground and pound and run things out, I think they're not afraid to throw the ball, but they're not going to have to. But Rashad Bateman could be the guy that steps up and makes the difference for the team, especially if Marquise Hollywood Brown's hamstring continues to be a problem.
Yeah, you know, we look around the league at different signings that have come through that you know, people may think about fantasy-wise. Emmanuel Sanders with the Buffalo Bills, does he make an impact?
It's Josh Allen. And Josh Allen can spread the ball around. You know, I just don't think he's even going to be the starter on the team. I think, you know, it's a coin flip between him and Cole Beasley in the slot. You know, of course, you're going to have Gabriel Davis on the outside to stretch the field and Stephon Diggs on the other side doing what he does so best. Stephon can be outside the numbers or inside. So, you know, there's not much worry there. You know, I'd like to see some more development from the receiving core there in tight end Dawson Knox. I think it's about time for him to step up. But Josh Allen, great quarterback. You know, he's just I can't say enough about him. He can run, he can pass. He's a smart guy. You know, he has a high completion percentage. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, and you can tell he's the driving force, and the team buys into him right now. So hopefully Zach Moss will get on board here, and Devin Singletary will continue to grow as well. And, you know, hopefully for their case, you know, a guy like Emmanuel Sanders still can make an impact. It's going to be interesting. I think Emmanuel Sanders is one of the few, you know, they've loosened up the jersey number restrictions. And, you know, like I even think Emmanuel Sanders has switched to number 1. You know, normally when you see that in college, the guy who wears number 1, he's usually one of the better guys on the team. So that's interesting for an old man to wear number 1.
Yeah, you know, it's definitely, you know, going to be interesting with Emmanuel Sanders because, listen, Stephon Diggs did some really good things in fantasy in Minnesota, and he carried that to Buffalo last year, and I have an expectation of him to continue to do that. I think Gabriel Davis is arguably going to be a sleeper and be the number 2 guy in Buffalo. Gabriel Davis, where do you put him? Is he late round, middle round? You know, where is Gabriel Davis, and do you believe that the UCF product is going to have an impact this year?
Well, I do, and the reason why I do is you saw the type of product he is. He can stretch the field. He has an opportunity, you know, to, like you said, come out of nowhere almost. I've seen him ranked anywhere from 49 to 63. It's just, I think in a 10 team or a 12 team draft, you're looking late rounds with him. You're looking at the, you know, 10, 11 rounds, I would think. So, you know, I don't think there's anything you need to rush on, but, you know, things can change between now and your draft, or now and, you know, when kickoff of week 1 happens. So, you know, you always want to just keep your options open like we've talked about. But this is a guy in Gabriel Davis, second-year pro at a UCF. This is a guy who has wheels. He has long strides, and that's right up where they need him to be. They need a long strider. They need somebody that can stretch the field and open things up for him and Stephon Diggs. Don't forget, Stephon Diggs is probably going to draw that number 1 corner on the other side. So if Cole Beasley or Emmanuel Sanders is in that slot there, they're going to garner a nickelback or a linebacker, and then Gabriel Davis on the outside, all he has to do is run the field. Just run fast. We'll throw you the ball.
Yeah, in the looking at what Gabriel Davis can be to Buffalo, it brings me to another team in division in the AFC East. I feel, to me, this question's already been answered, but I guess to the Miami Dolphins it hasn't been because he's still there. Is Devontae Parker, is he done? And does he have any fantasy value? And is Will Fuller the guy? I'm looking at Devontae Parker and I'm saying I've been waiting for him to arrive in the NFL since he arrived in the NFL. But Will Fuller the fifth is super talented, but he never stays healthy coming out of Notre Dame. So where are we at, Mike? What do you think of Will Fuller? What do you think of Devontae Parker in Miami?
Well, I think those are the two guys. Those are the 1 and 2 on the team. Well, they just drafted Jalen Waddle. They're going to put him in the slot and open some things up for him quick over the middle. But I think Will Fuller, he has that thing where, there was a time when he was healthy, every time he played, he got a touchdown. So, like, if you were in a touchdown-only league or if you were in DraftKings or FanDuel, you always had Will Fuller on your team if you knew he was going to play, because that's what he did. He produced, and that's what we do. That's what we like. Devontae Parker, I think a lot has been put on his shoulders in the past, and he didn't do himself any favors in 2019 when he had over 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. Now, that was hard to come back from or duplicate under, missing or playing 2 less games. He only played 14 games last year, but he only had 793 yards and 4 touchdowns. Yeah. So he also had some transition going on at quarterback in Miami there with Tua coming on strong late. So I'm not giving up on Devontae Parker. I think he's worthy of a spot on my roster just simply because of he's going to have reads. He's going to have targets. And I think those are guys you need to have. You need to have guys that are going to be on the field. And because, the best ability is availability. So you need to have guys that are going to be on the field, that are worthy of being on the field, then that are worthy of being on your team. I've seen Devontae Parker ranked as high as 35. I've seen him as low as 49. So, with that in mind, I would think he's the guy that I'm going to try to catch in the middle rounds in the draft. If, again, just depending on what happens.
Yeah, and so, it is. It's for me, I want to believe in Will Fuller, but again, it's health. And Devontae Parker, I have not seen it. And I've waited to see it. I feel like I was 19 years old when he came into the league, and now I'm 35.
Devontae Parker's only 28.
I'm still waiting for the evolution. I really am, and my math says that he would have played in the league at 12. But I'm still waiting. I'm still sitting here, and I'm still waiting, and I feel like I don't have any answers better now than I had back then, and that to me is an issue when it comes to draft day. The New England Patriots, what they have now, Nelson Agholor never caught on in Philly. He never caught on with the Raiders. He has a 2-year contract for $26 million with New England. What do you think about Nelson Agholor, and what do you think about Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith? Knowing that right now, Cam Newton / Mac Jones are their quarterbacks. What happens with the quarterback situation? I have a theory. I think Mac Jones is going to play in week 7, and they're going to use Cam Newton as kind of like a wildcat, like by the end zone type of thing. But what are your thoughts on the quarterback situation, Nelson Agholor, and the Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith thing? Because if it was Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, and Tom Brady, I'm saying, one's going to have 11 touchdowns, the other one's going to have 10. But what do you think about the situation?
Oh, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting that, they did one of the things that I've always talked about and that I've always preached and that we've seen happen in the past. And we've said it before. They went to the well. They didn't just stand in line to get to the well to take a drink of water and then leave. They took a drink of water and then they took some water with them. They went to the well twice. They drew on it twice. So that's what you have to do. And that's what happened. Everybody's eyes lit up when Jonnu Smith went to the Patriots, and then boom, the next day, Hunter Henry's going to Patriots. You're like, wait a second, what is that? But, they like having that. That's a big thing in the NFL right now, having two dominant tight ends who can not only block but can catch the ball. It just opens up another wrinkle. If you'd like to have a tight end like that who can catch the ball, I like to have a Hunter Henry or Jonnu Smith up against a linebacker. I'll take that any day of the week. And those are the mismatches that creates, especially when they're both on the field at the same time. If I had to choose between the two of them, I would choose Hunter Henry, but in a narrow margin. These guys are ranked right now because they're going to cannibalize each other. 15 and 16 on my draft rankings PPR right now. So Hunter Henry, the slight edge there, but that could go either way, and it could be whoever has the hot hand as well. So you definitely want to pay attention to that. As far as Nelson Aguilar, yeah, he's had trouble catching on in places, and this is a type situation where, he had a bounce back season last year, put up almost 900 yards, 8 touchdowns. But is this Randy Moss? No. Is this a big impact player for New England? No. Is Tom Brady the quarterback? No. Now, I'm going to give Cam Newton a pass here. I'm going to give him a pass because he was a free agent going into a COVID year. Yeah. Then they had COVID, and he had COVID at one point. So this is a guy who never really got the full experience of getting in that offense and making it happen. Muscle memory. You're only good as a quarterback in the NFL if you're playing, because those guys are the guys that are getting the reps. You want to get those practice reps. It's one thing to look at a book or look at a play or know how to do this or be told how to do that, but that muscle memory and actually putting that to work. So I give Cam Newton the benefit of the doubt, and I actually go a little bit away from where you are, Dan, right now. I think Cam Newton's going to be the quarterback from wire to wire, and I think the Patriots are going to be a little better than people think they should be. That being said, I'm not super excited about my starting 3 wide receivers being Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, and Nelson Aguilar. No other names. Trey Nixon they just brought in. N'Keal Harry hasn't done anything yet. Gunnar Olszewski, he's come on. He looks like a good return guy to me. But that's it. So I expect to see heavy doses of Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. I expect to see the new big plotting back in Ramondre Stevenson. This is a guy who, if you remember LeGarrette Blount, that's who he reminds me of, a big physical back. But they still have Damian Harris, and James White catches a lot of passes. So I think they're going to do what Belichick does. They're going to figure out ways to win games, and the Patriots are going to have a winning record and probably make the playoffs on the back end.
Yeah, and that's the thing, with Jonnu Smith, and like you said, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, they're going to cannibalize each other. If this was Tom Brady, then he has, the 1-2 punch that he had in the past with Gronk, and the person will leave unnamed. But the guy that apparently Tim Tebow talked down from a fight in a cafeteria at Florida. But, it's one of those things where we don't know what it's all going to look like and how it's all going to shake out. And that leaves a lot to be desired. Now, if you have the team quarterback and you have Mac Jones and Cam Newton and you're in one of my wake-up call leagues, you get the team quarterback, you get New England quarterback instead of one of them, that could be a good thing as like a third option, or like a COVID emergency option type of thing. Jonnu and Hunter Henry, I agree with you. They're going to eat at each other, so it's hard to put one over the other. But these are two guys that are not that deep into their career, and they're both starters. Hunter Henry was the heir apparent to Antonio Gates. Jonnu Smith was the heir apparent to Delaney Walker. And both of them being on this team, a few years ago with Bill Belichick, people would be ripping their hair out, going crazy, going, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they got these guys. Nelson Aguilar, in other news, I'm not sold on him. And, my frustration with him stems back to Philadelphia and me taking a shot on him when he was a rookie. So I'm just not in a place right now where I can really sit here and say, yeah, I think he's worth taking. I think if you take him and I mean, yeah, if you get him late and you're like, whatever, he's my 6th or 7th wide receiver, fine. But if you're expecting him to start, stop it. Don't do that. That doesn't make any sense. Another thing to look at in this season is Ben Roethlisberger. He just turned 68 years old, and he is, talk about Aaron Rodgers toying with retirement. Big Ben, we thought 2-3 years ago he was going to retire. Then he was going to keep playing. Then he was going to retire. Then he got hurt and thought, should I keep playing? And so, but he keeps coming back. The bell hasn't tolled on Big Ben yet. So we're still here. And Juju decided to come back, and there was a thought that Juju would leave. And so now Juju's back. Ben is back. There's no James Conner. There's no Le'Veon Bell. There's no Antonio Brown. These weapons that he's had over the years aren't there anymore. They have 5 serviceable running backs, including Kalen Ballage, who came over to the team. So there's all of these pieces, and Juju's only on a 1-year deal worth $8 million. So what's your take on Pittsburgh? Are they viable? Are they draftable? Where's Juju? Where are the running backs? Deontay Johnson, James Washington. I mean, what is Pittsburgh right now?
Well, Pittsburgh's a team who threw the ball last year over 60% of the time, and that's what inflated Roethlisberger's numbers, even when he, was not playing well. They have offensive line problem. A lot of new names, a lot of new faces along the line. And there's talk that Najee Harris, while he's a great back and he's a 3-down back, and this is a guy who can stay on the field and he can run between the tackles and he can break it outside and he can run the wheel route and he can catch the ball and this guy can pass block and this guy's another Superman out of Alabama, like they produce there. And that's great because these are great athletes going in and they're even better when they're coming out of Alabama. So I believe in him. What I don't believe is that offensive line. So he could be in for a beating this year. I looked at I've been watching when I'm at home. I just keep the training camp stuff on in the background, even if I'm doing other stuff, because you never know what you're going to see or hear. An injury, something's going to happen that most people are going to miss. And just by even being on in the background, sometimes you'll catch some things. They had Ben Roethlisberger doing some quarterback sprints. So like in a red zone situation where he'll be under center and then he'll roll out and sprint around the end. That's not what Ben Roethlisberger does. But that's what he's going to do now because nobody's going to expect that. They're looking to open things up. Now, I think Deontay Johnson is going to be the number 1 per se, but he's going to be in the slot. And then outside is Smith-Schuster and Claypool. Right now, Claypool's coming off a better year. I think he had 9 touchdowns last year. He said on the NFL Network today that he was trying to shoot for 14. Juju Smith-Schuster is a guy who, when he moved over to the number 1 spot, seemed to have trouble overcoming those number 1 corners. Yeah. So these guys are all ranked real close together on my rankings. Deontay Johnson is 25, and I think I have Juju Smith-Schuster. No, Deontay Johnson 23, Smith-Schuster 26, and Chase Claypool 27. So most people would say, oh, those guys aren't good. You got 3 guys on one team right there. 3 guys in the top 27. So, yes, those are decent receivers. Can Ben Roethlisberger stand upright long enough and get them the ball? Can they keep other teams honest? Are the other teams going to load 8 guys in a box? Because they're going to start seeing the Najee Harris show. Now that opens things up for your wide receivers. So, definitely a work in progress. I believe there's some money and some value to be had in these Pittsburgh players. It just don't go in thinking that all these guys are tier 1 guys. I got Ben Roethlisberger as a number 20 quarterback because, again, I think they're going to have a regression because of that offensive line.
Yeah, and that's the thing is really what this is going to look like. And if Big Ben is the guy to be trusted, I mean, there's talent, like you said, there's talented guys on this team. But James Washington has never fully stepped up. Deontay Johnson is young on the team and has the ability to do it. And their 9,000 running backs are trying to figure out how they're going to all, do this together. So, it's supposed to be Le'Veon Bell. Then it was supposed to be James Conner. And then, okay, from here, it's wide open. And in the additions that they brought in, it's just kind of leaving us in a world where, if you look at the Steelers' depth chart, at this point, and who they have just at running back alone, to look at this team and say, okay, Najee Harris, who was drafted in the first round, 24th overall, and then you have Benny Snell, who was on the team, Anthony McFarland, Jalen Samuels, Kalen Ballage, and Trey Edmonds. All of these guys can get some time somehow, some way. Now, Jalen Samuels gives himself an opportunity because he's like an HVAC guy and he can do a lot of different things. And I covered him in college. So there's a lot of things that, you know, he can be a jack of all trades if he needs to be. And that's a benefit to him. So, you know, he can stick around. Benny Snell can find his way to kind of stick around and get his footing. Jalen Samuels coming from NC State. And, you know, and then Anthony McFarland, young onto the team. Kalen Ballage coming in after he spent some time as a starter when he was in Miami. But, you know, it looks to be Najee Harris. However, somebody else is going to be used. That's what Pittsburgh has done. They've utilized other guys. So is it going to be Benny Snell, or does somebody else come up? And this is kind of something to monitor in training camp. It's something, like you said, keep the TV on in the background, listen to what's going on, check the depth chart regularly, see what's going. You know, this is certain teams you need to check things out beforehand. And one of those teams is the Pittsburgh Steelers, to continue to go back and see who's the number one guy, who's getting the reps. What did they say in camp today? Did this guy get hurt? Is there any COVID issues? Because the running back room of Pittsburgh is a big room. And that room does not have okay, this is the guy. Speaking of a big room where we don't know what in the heck is going on, Rex Burkhead, Mark Ingram, Philip Lindsay, this Houston, David Johnson, this Houston Texans backfield is just, it's like a graveyard of guys that used to start or used to be utilized in their offense. Rex Burkhead comes from the New England Patriots. Philip Lindsay comes undrafted, but was the starter in Denver for a time. Mark Ingram was a fine 1-2 punch, arguably the best in the country with New Orleans Saints, Alvin Kamara. And then he decided to go elsewhere. He goes to Baltimore. That doesn't work out. And now here he is in Houston. And David Johnson in one of the most lopsided trades, where they say nothing in life is a sure thing. But guess what? Very few things you can say pretty much 100%. And 99.9% of me said to myself, DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson means victory for Arizona and a head scratcher for Houston. We have potentially guys who are washed up in their career, trying to resurrect their career, and they're doing it in Houston. They picked the perfect time to come to Houston, where Deshaun Watson has all these cases against him and nobody knows what the hell's going on if he's going to play. So here we are. They don't have a dominant wide receiver. Their golden boy quarterback is in the media for all the wrong reasons. Burkhead, Lindsay, David Johnson, and Mark Ingram. What do we make of Houston?
Well, you know, back in the days of when this country was first really dipping its toe in a space exploration, you know, one of the things that you heard, I think it was the Apollo 11, Apollo 13, whatever movie Tom Hanks did, isn't one of the lines, Houston, we have a problem? That's what we have in Houston. We got a problem. Matter of fact, we got 99 problems. You got Deshaun Watson with 22 different, you know, civil suits against him, nothing criminal yet. He's not on the exempt list. He doesn't want to play there. He's not in camp. He's in camp. He reported, so he didn't get fined, but he's not really participating. That's a gray area there, and I don't think he's going to participate. But I think the return that Houston is looking for is 3 number ones. I don't think they're going to get that out of a guy that you don't even know if he's going to be on the field. All this could change in a month's time. We just don't know enough about the information that's, you know, being held against him. Tyrod Taylor, he's a journeyman guy. Heck, he was supposed to be the starter for the Chargers, and then he had that bad injection, you know, in one of the first games. And Justin Herbert came in, didn't look back, looked great. You know, we question the David Johnson thing. I think David Johnson's an okay player, you know, but I don't think he's anything to write home about. I think Mark Ingram's a Grizzly veteran. He'll be good for that room, but I don't see him tearing it up. Rex Burkhead's had time being injured, but he can catch the ball, and he's a big back as well. And Philip Lindsay, I still think, has some life in him. Couple question marks on the receiving side, though, too. So up and down this roster, we got problems. You know, tight end, Jordan Akins, is he going to finally step up? The kid out of UCF, is he going to make it happen? Pharaoh Brown, who's that? Most people don't even know who that is. They brought in Brevin Jordan this year. They drafted him. But when your outside receivers are Brandon Cooks, who's seen better days, Kiki Kuti, I know we always did the Kiki song, and Anthony Miller, he doesn't wow me. Nothing's really going on. They do draft the Nico Collins, who I have a lot of faith in. I think dynasty-wise, that's a guy you want to target. Andre Roberts is more or less a return guy in my mind's eye. So I don't think anybody's really jumping out at me going, wow, I got to target that guy from Houston. None of those guys I just talked about are guys I'm going to go after. If they fall to me real late, I might take them, but I'm not going after any of these guys.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I don't think you can. And I haven't trusted a running back all the way back to Lamar Miller. I haven't trusted a running back, when it comes to Houston in a very, very, very long time. So, and I continue to feel that way in Houston, maybe even more so now that it just seems like it's all over the place. And it's making me sit here and scratch my head and go, what, wait, why? Why did you do that? So it just continues to be confusing, and that's just the reality of it all. The Jacksonville Jaguars, going back to them, bringing in Laquan Treadwell. They brought in a bunch of guys: Jamal Agnew, Pharoh Cooper, Philip Dorsett, Marvin Jones Jr. All of these new receivers on top of Laviska Shenault, who's coming in year 2, and DJ Chark, who's another young receiver on the team. What do you think about the receiving situation in Jacksonville? I mean, Philip Dorsett gave him a chance. He played with the Patriots. He played with the Colts. Pharoh Cooper played with the Panthers. Jamal Agnew played with the Colts. Marvin Jones played with Detroit most recently. And before that was with the Cincinnati Bengals. Laquan Treadwell was supposed to be a young hopeful in Minnesota. What's your take on Jacksonville's receivers?
I think Jacksonville's deep in the receiver room, and I think Tampa's just as deep. I think these are two of the deepest, and they're in the same state here. DJ Chark is DJ Chark. He's going to look great all the time. No one's going to outshine him when he's on the field. Laviska Shenault tries, but Laviska Shenault's going to have to make sure he can get his own self on the field. Marvin Jones is in the room as well. Colin Johnson, the speedster, young guy. Philip Dorsett, like I said, looked good at camp. And speaking of camp, they bring in Jalen Camp, who should be a good receiver in the future as well. Laquan Treadwell, like I said, looked real good at the practice on Saturday. Pharoh Cooper, great return guy. He did have a couple great catches over the middle from Trevor Lawrence, and that's on that video that I did that I put up on YouTube and on the website. So just search out Winning Fantasy Football, and you'll find that. But, I think that Trevor Lawrence is being set up for success here. He has a lot of tools around him. He's got a guy who's confident as can be at the running back situation in James Robinson, although that ego may have taken a bit of a bruise by the team drafting Travis Etienne. What they got to do is massage that and make sure he understands. It's almost like a thunder and lightning thing. Travis Etienne is going to line up in the slot. He's going to line up at receiver. They're going to do some fast things for him. They're going to line him up at receiver and have him run jet sweeps. They're going to do things with this guy because this guy's a jackknife. He can do just about anything, and he's wearing jersey number 1. We just talked about that as well. So I think the tight end situation is curious. I don't know if Tebow makes the team. I think I'd like to see Tebow make the team. In practice yesterday, though, or Saturday, Manhertz looked real good. He caught something real nice, and I thought he was really a blocking guy like Luke Farrell. Tyler Davis stepped up at one point, and so did Ben Ellefson. So I'm not sure that there's a clear-cut direction with the tight ends. I would say that Tebow's got an upper edge. The coach likes him. He likes the coach. They lived on the same block at one time, I think. So, there's a lot of familiarity, and I'm sure that Tebow's here as a locker room guy as well. And if you notice, I haven't heard or seen of Tebow being a distraction. That's because he's at the tight end position. So maybe if he does get kept, maybe they do some wildcat type things or some goal line situations with Tebow or with both him and Trevor Lawrence on the field. That would be interesting to see wrinkles like that. I wouldn't put it past Urban Meyer. But I think the defense is something to say for the offense here. Because, again, if the defense can get a rookie quarterback like Trevor Lawrence out of trouble, I mean, let's face it, Peyton Manning, who, by the way, is still 0-4 against the Florida Gators, even he led the league in interceptions when he was a rookie. So there's going to be some interceptions. You need that defense in Jacksonville to be able to step up and step up and limit teams to a field goal if it's in their own red zone. You need a team that can get the ball back for you. You got to have guys that have that mentality that it doesn't matter. We believe in this kid. We believe in this kid long term. And everybody's going to get along fine, and Jacksonville's going to find themselves in the playoffs making a deep run.
Yeah, and that's the thing is Jacksonville has a chance now to get after it. The Colts being a question mark with Carson Wentz coming in and now being even more of a question mark that he's injured, and then Houston being a question mark. Really, Tennessee has improved, and Jacksonville needs to take advantage of this. They got a lot of young talent. They've got a potential franchise quarterback, a hopeful one, in number one pick Trevor Lawrence. They got Travis Etienne as a safety blanket, security blanket from Clemson with him. You got James Robinson. You bring depth to your O line for the first time in forever. You bring depth to your defensive line. You bring depth to your linebacker core. You bring depth to your secondary. Jacksonville doesn't have any excuses this year to go from almost zero to hero at this point. Moving on here and looking at some of the other pieces, the Denver Broncos, they have Cortland Sutton. They have Jerry Jeudy. It's a great 1-2 punch. Sutton missed last year due to injury. Hopefully his body is well. And with his body being well, he's given himself more time in the NFL because he doesn't have the wear and tear last season. Jerry Jeudy is a young receiver. But who's their guy? Is it Drew Lock? Is it Teddy Bridgewater? And do either one of those quarterbacks make you feel safe in drafting Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy?
Yeah, I think I've seen an interesting take on this. I've heard that if Drew Lock's the quarterback, Sutton's the guy, and of course if Bridgewater's the quarterback, Jerry Jeudy's the guy. I'm not sure I agree with that situation, but it is something to look at a little closer. I always listen and watch what other people say, and because maybe they're going to open things up for me. Maybe they're going to, wow, I didn't look at it that way, or wow, that's an interesting point. I'll explain. You can't be rigid. You can't just go, oh, it's my way. This is the way I do things. You got to be open to those other avenues as well. So I like Cortland Sutton. I like Jerry Jeudy as well. So I think either one of those guys would have a home on my team. Doesn't matter if Locke or Bridgewater is the quarterback. But the interesting thing I've seen and heard that it's been a balanced situation so far in camp between Locke and Bridgewater. And I would think that would give the edge to Locke, being he's the younger player. They want to give him the opportunity to continue to grow. Yeah, Bridgewater's a guy who can step in and win some games. He did that when he was in New Orleans. This is a guy who was flying high for a while before that big knee injury with Minnesota. So this is a guy that I can see Teddy Bridgewater stepping in if something happens injury-wise to Drew Lock, or if something goes wrong and they come out of the gate slow and they don't start winning games. I think they're going to try to run the ball a lot more effectively. They did draft Javonte Williams, and Melvin Gordon is still there. Now, they did jettison Philip Lindsay, but I think between Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, they're going to have a good 1-2 punch there. I think both guys are similar. They can both be 3-down backs. Javonte Williams is a guy who does everything really well. He doesn't do one thing so superb. In other words, he can catch the ball, he can pass block, he can run the ball, he can run between the tackles, he can run outside. He does all those things at a very high rating, but he's not the best at any one of those things. But that's okay because he's a jack of all trades. They're a Swiss Army knife type kind of guy. If you watched him in college, this guy can do it all. So I think it's interesting. I don't think Melvin Gordon is worried about Javonte Williams. I don't think Javonte Williams is worried about Melvin Gordon. I think they're going to find a way to make this work until an injury happens. Then all bets are off. I think the defense is shaping up over there. I think they're bringing in Patrick Surtain. Makes a lot of sense. They needed another quarterback. So hopefully that'll be whoever turns out to be the quarterback on the Broncos. Hopefully that the defense will be their best friend as well. So I think Denver's going to go as their quarterbacks go. If they go with Drew Lock and he starts winning games, everything is going to be fine. If they come out losing in the first 5 or 6, 7 games, I can see them making a move to Teddy Bridgewater. So it's going to be how their quarterback goes is how everything goes. So pay close attention to the quarterback battle there and play close attention to my rankings as well, so I can give you some guidance on, a guy like Cortland Sutton or a guy like, Jerry Jeudy. I don't have either one of these guys as guys that, oh my gosh, I have to have them on my team. These are mid-round guys right now. So I don't know if I trust where I'm at with them mentally right now. if that makes any sense. In other words, because I don't know that quarterback information,
Yeah.
I'm not as solid on my rankings with them as I may be another guy. These guys are in my 30s on the rankings here. So if that should tell you something, these guys may be my wide receiver 3.
Yeah, you know, and to see, you know, like we were talking about with this, you know, this Denver situation, it's tough because the quarterback runs the show, right? But Javonte Williams could be a great phenom as a rookie. Could be up for Rookie of the Year. And Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton are both dangerous, serviceable, and strong to have out there. So it's just one of those things of what is this quarterback going to do? And are they going to check down? Are they going to get the ball out in time? Can they get it to the running back? Will they go deep downfield? What's their arm strength life? And like I tell people all the time on the show, every quarterback, like you just said, Mike, every quarterback has their guy. Every quarterback has the person that they feel most comfortable with. So you might sit here and say, well, Jerry Jeudy for the first 6 weeks of the season was getting me, 17 points a game. Well, why is Cortland Sutton getting me the point? Well, because Teddy Bridgewater is really good with Cortland Sutton, and they sat Drew Lock. So it's just reality that every quarterback has their guy, and you hope that both of these guys are going to get open and the quarterbacks are going to be able to hit them. But the reality of it all is every quarterback has the person that they like to go to, and if that's the place they're going to lean, you have to pay attention to where they're leaning, because it could affect you. It doesn't matter, like you sitting there going, but they're talented, but they should start, but they're talented. That doesn't mean anything. They shoulda, woulda, coulda doesn't mean anything. It's what is actually happening. What is actually on the stat sheet. What is the reality? Because that is the only thing you should be paying attention to. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, yeah, there's a lot of things. There's 32 teams in the NFL. Everybody thinks their team should win a championship, but there's only one victor and 31 others watching. So if you want to win your fantasy championship, don't live in the shoulda, woulda, couldas. Live in the this is what's happening. With that being stated, shoulda, woulda, couldas versus reality. Kerryon Johnson is a young running back. He's now on Philadelphia. Not only did Detroit not want him, they left him on waivers. They just sat him out there like nothing. Like a cereal that your mom buys that you're never going to eat. You just hope it goes stale so she has to throw it out, which is exactly what Detroit did to Kerryon Johnson, who now joins Kenneth Gainwell, who they drafted out of Memphis, because Memphis has running backs every year. Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, who was the backup to Saquon in Penn State, Jordan Howard, who used to be the starter in Chicago, Adrian Killins Jr., who is a speedster who could make some hay on special teams coming out of UCF, Elijah Holyfield, and Jason Huntley. So many players on this team, and Kerryon Johnson gets claimed off of waivers. Does he have any value? Does Jordan Howard have any value? Does Boston Scott have a lot of value? Does everything run through Miles Sanders? Where are we in Philadelphia?
The guys in the running back room that I'd be most focused on would be Miles Sanders, of course, providing he's healthy. He's the guy. Now, Boston Scott has stepped in as a number 2. I think Kerryon Johnson's all but done. Same thing with Jordan Howard. But you can't throw those guys away. You got to keep them in the back of your mind, because injuries happen. Stuff happens. We've seen these, guys, these same players, their careers being affected by injury. Kerryon Johnson as well. So, I don't think you can just make a blanket thing with everyone else on the roster. Yeah, Miles Sanders is the guy to have. If you're a dynasty league, of course you want Kenneth Gainwell, another guy out of that Memphis thing that they keep kicking out these running backs that are doing well in the NFL. Then you got to wait deep in that bench. You got Adrian Killins Jr., a guy who has background with the Knights at UCF. He's a speedster. Oh, and then you have the heavyweight champs kid, the guy out of Georgia, Elijah Holyfield. So, yeah, there's a lot of guys there, but it's a lot of guys is what it is. I want the guy. And if I'm looking at Philadelphia's backfield, the only guy I'm really focused on is Miles Sanders.
Yeah, but the thing is health. And 17 games starting this year. So somebody's going to step up, be it Kerryon, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Jordan Howard, Adrian Killins Jr. somebody's going to step up. So you got to pay attention to that, because I do not imagine, and I hope that, and I want him to stay healthy. In my gut, think that you're going to have to know Philadelphia's running back room beyond Miles Sanders. So just something to note for you folks out there. How about this guy? Washington is not only in the business of never having a name, Washington is also in the business of taking people that you would think retired 5 years ago. Ryan Fitzpatrick is not the only one. Guess about this name from the past. Lamar, don't call me, mother freaking Miller, who played for Houston and played for Miami and just was playing, bocce ball at one of the retirement homes, is now playing for the Washington football team. And I heard he was a hell of a bocce player. But now he's back, and now he's doing his thing. Mike, what are your thoughts on the Washington football team, who's out here bringing in guys like Curtis Samuel, who didn't make it in Carolina, and Lamar Miller, who, like I said, they just took out of the retirement home. He was used to having lunch at 11 o'clock. He was used to bocce at 3, and he was used to Turner Classic Movies at 8 p.m., but now he's playing on a football team again. What are your thoughts?
Well, actually, a point about, Samuel, I think he did rather well. And I think he came here with the intent of being the number one guy. Now, of course, he's got a, COVID injury situation right now. But if you look at the roster on Washington, I think they have a great team up and down. I don't believe in Terry McLaurin. I don't believe he can continue on that same trend with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's going to have to air it out. But I don't think he's going to have to air it out as often as he had in the past, because I think the Washington defense is a little bit better than some of the other teams. But a Kelvin Harmon doesn't shock me. De'Ami Brown, he's going to get some looks early as well. Gandy Golden, you got to wonder if he turned out from last year's draft, and Dax Milne as well. So, but you specifically talked about Lamar Miller. I think he might have a hard time making the roster. Them bringing in Jared Patterson, undrafted kid out of Buffalo. I think this is a guy who can really do some damage. I look for them to go, if they have a choice between Lamar Miller and this kid, they're going with the kid. Lamar Miller is 150 years old, and it looks like his better days are behind him. But he still has some game. He still has some life. He's still there. But Antonio Gibson's the guy. That's the guy you want at running back room. J.D. McKissic had a false stat last year. In other words, because of injuries to the running back room, J.D. McKissic was the only guy at times. So he was a 3-down back, and he was catching the ball, and that's what he does, and that's what they were doing for him. And he was getting 7, 8, 9 catches in a game in a PPR league. That's a huge advantage. His numbers were falsely inflated last year is what I'm saying. Don't buy into the hype. Everybody's back. They're going to throw the ball a little more with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and the defense is going to hold, so they don't have to air it out. They can just keep short throws. But again, J.D. McKissic, without injury to somebody else in that running back room, is probably not going to have the same level of year he had last year. So look out for that false sense there. The guy I'm most excited about seeing is Logan Thomas, the tight end. Is he going to step up, or are we going to see the newly drafted tight end John Bates come on the field and do something as well? So I think there's some value there in Washington. Stick close to the rankings that I'm putting out as we get closer to the season. But again, I don't think Lamar Miller may even make the team. I think he may have a hard time making the roster.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar Miller, again, he did some good things in Miami. He did some things in Houston. I didn't trust him at all when he was in Houston, and even before then in fantasy. So, I think it's difficult here to see that happen. The Green Bay Packers, how about this, Mike? Quarterback Aaron Rodgers breaks his silence, tells everybody how he feels, gives a laundry list of names, not just saying, hey, they made mistakes, but him doing what I tell people all the time. Do 2 things. Justify your opinion and be respectful. Well, Aaron Rodgers sounded like he was getting divorced, but he wanted to tell everybody his ex-wife isn't that bad. She made good dinner, she just wasn't a good kisser. We went on trips together, but she never wanted to do what I wanted to do. She listened to me, but she didn't really hear me. She's not a bad wife. She's just not a great one. One of the names on the laundry list of unceremoniously being let go by the Packers was a one Randall Cobb. And ironically, and as some people would say, coincidentally, which I don't believe in coincidences because, hello, within about 12 seconds of Aaron Rodgers saying, yeah, I don't like any of these things that you did and any of these people that you let go, one of them being Randall Cobb, all of a sudden, a trade for a 2022 pick sends Randall Cobb back to Green Bay, and Houston gets a draft pick next year. What are your thoughts on the Green Bay Packers at least trying to right one wrong by giving Randall Cobb back to Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I think it's a good move to give him something, and it didn't cost him hardly anything. $622, I think. So, Amari Rodgers is the guy I'm focused on, and he may be side by side with Randall Cobb. Maybe Randall Cobb is really here to mold the guy in Amari Rodgers. Who the quarterback likes in Green Bay, especially with Aaron Rodgers, that goes far. He said he liked Allen Lazard when Allen Lazard came in. Allen Lazard is arguably the number 2 receiver there behind Devontae Adams. So they have some other names in the room, and Equanimous St. Brown and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. The running situation is interesting to me. Aaron Jones, can he stay healthy? If he can, he's a 3-down back. But A.J. Dillon, he should get some more touches this year. They bring in Kylan Hill as well. So maybe that rookie can get on the field. But I think Aaron Rodgers is a winner. He's proved he's a winner. He thinks they have some of the pieces to go deep into the playoffs, but at the same time, he's regretting some of those guys who departed, like you said. And here's the thing. I get Aaron wants to be part of the discussion, but this is a business. The NFL is a business. It's about money. And a lot of times there's business and things that affect money that, quite frankly, it doesn't matter what the quarterback thinks. It matters what the quarterback thinks when it's Aaron Rodgers, and it matters what the quarterback thinks when it is in Green Bay, and it matters what he thinks at this point in his career. But at the same time, I think that they're trying a little bit. It looks like they're making an effort.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see when all is said and done. But Aaron's a guy who's confident. And, if I got Aaron Rodgers, that's like having Tom Brady. There's 2 minutes to go in the game. It's like a Brett Favre scenario. I am not worried. We're down 10 points. I'm not worried. I got Aaron friggin' Rodgers. That's the thing that he brings to the team. So he can help them get a couple wins just by being, just by existing. He'll get them a couple wins. So hopefully they'll be able to communicate well with each other. Hopefully they'll have a good year in Green Bay, and we'll see what the future brings for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Randall Cobb back, and I thought Randall Cobb was let go too soon, and now we have a chance to see what it's going to be like to have him back. So it'll be interesting now with Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb on the same team doing the thing. Mercedes Lewis, who I thought was going to, be close to retirement at this point in his career, signed another 2 years on to stay with the Green Bay Packers, which I love, and I don't think Jacksonville respected him. He was the only man that bridged the gap between a decade of not going to the playoffs and then they let him go. So I'm happy that he is with Mr. Aaron Rodgers, and I hope that things continue to work out in his favor and continue to go well for him. Last note that I want to talk about, Mike, for today's show, as we've gone around the fantasy football world inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Go out and see them Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week, indoor and outdoor seating, plus TVs everywhere. It's local, so you're supporting Central and Upstate New York. And, of course, for takeout and delivery, you can call 315-487-2222. You can also call them for catering. Mike and I will close today with someone who's always brought up by Papa Joe, another Floridian. And that's his man, Jameis. Famous Jameis Winston. Do you buy it? Is he really the quarterback to lead them into the next chapter after Breeze? Is he the post-Breeze quarterback of the New Orleans Saints? Where is Taysom Hill in all of this? And Devontae Freeman is a Saint now with Alvin Kamara. What is your take? And is Michael Thomas sick, healthy, angry, annoyed, positive, negative? Is he playing? Is he not playing? Is he one of the fourth best, wide receivers in the country? Or is he, going to be on Howard Stern's show next week?
Yeah, I think the Michael Thomas thing goes back to last year, the beginning of last year, when he and the quarterback, Drew Brees, had some words for each other going back and forth in response to social issues. And, it just didn't put a good taste in his mouth. Then he had some injuries, and you wonder, were they really real injuries in the COVID year? And then, the quarterback situation, like you asked, I think Taysom Hill is the guy who's got every advantage, every possibility. He's going to be the number one guy unless something happens where they say, Jameis has really stepped up. I don't think they're going to put Jameis in situations where he has to throw interceptions like he's done in the past. That's his big drawback. He doesn't make good decisions. And you could see that in him, unfortunately, both on and off the field. My gut tells me Jameis Winston's not going to be a Saint after next year. They have Ian Book that they brought in, and I think he's the next guy, if you would. But he's not the guy right now. He's not going to be the guy right now. They're not going to put that on him. So I think they're going to try to go with Taysom Hill. Maybe they'll have packages for both quarterbacks. But Alvin Kamara is going to be Alvin Kamara regardless. He's going to put up those numbers. The guy in the backfield that I'd be interested in right behind him, one of the few handcuffs I would take very late in the draft is Latavius Murray. I don't think Devonta Freeman's got what it takes to maybe make the roster. We'll see. Maybe he'll prove me wrong here. I think they're deficient in the tight end area in New Orleans. I think Nick Vannett can be the guy, but Adam Troutman's a guy to watch out for as well. These are bottom end tight ends, though, for your team. So I think Tre'Quan Smith needs to take a step up this year. Deontay Harris, Marquez Callaway, these guys all need to take a step up because I don't know if I can count on Michael Thomas like you had said. I don't know physically, mentally. I just don't know. And I need a guy who has the talent and still has the talent level to be a top 4 receiver in this league. If I got him at number 40 right now, not 40 on my rankings, well, you can see how I feel about the situation.
Yeah, Michael Thomas, head case, and, was heading toward being the number 1 receiver in the country. And now here we are with a lot of question marks. Jameis Winston taking over at quarterback, 33 touchdowns to 30 interceptions. Those numbers start to keep you up at night. Where does Taysom Hill fit into all this? Taysom Hill, a guy like Eric Dungy, where they're like, you can't put him on a team. He doesn't make sense. He's not a traditional quarterback, blah, 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 blah. He's a tight end. You could get him on ESPN a couple years ago as like a wide receiver, a tight end. And here he is as a quarterback, could be taking over, could have this. Maybe they use them both. I think Taysom Hill is a great opportunity for them. Devontae Freeman trying to help out Alvin Kamara in the backfield. Devontae, like Todd Gurley's got a season to show himself. Maybe they take him back next season for $12 and a Charms Blow Pop. Probably grape flavor because not a lot of people like that one. But that's kind of where Devontae Freeman is. And Alvin Kamara he did well with the 1-2 punch. If I'm Mark Ingram, at this point, I would have said, listen, I would have said to New Orleans, it didn't work in Baltimore. I left. I tried to do it on my own. It didn't happen. You know what? I need Alvin back. I'll come back. Give me $11 and the cherry blow pop. I don't care what you give me. I don't need watermelon. I don't need, midnight or black raspberry or whatever it may be. Just give me something and let me come back to this team because the 1-2 punch used to feel good, and I like Taysom Hill. But here's the thing. Michael Thomas, question mark, and Jameis Winston, question mark. With Alvin Kamara, and does he eventually at some point get sick of this and say, listen, I'm going to another team because I don't want to deal with this, which I think after the rookie contract for Saquon Barkley, Saquon's going to say, deuces to the Giants, like, thanks for whatever, but I'm out. And, those are the 2 names I look out for as running backs, on a list if we want to make that list someday. Alvin Kamara and Saquon Barkley. When the contracts are up, are these 2 like prime guys that are looking to go elsewhere? And if they are, LeBron James will probably bring them to the Lakers. So it's just something for you to know for the future. But we went around the league today. We covered a lot of fantasy. We answered questions you may have had, questions you didn't know you had, and made analogies that you didn't even think could be made, but we made them and we did it. Any final words, Mr. Sofka?
No, just I'm excited. Things are really ramping up quick. Keep your eye on the injuries. Keep your eye on staying in touch with us. As things ramp up and as we get closer, there's more content that'll be available to everyone. And again, a lot of people know me from the website Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com. Right now, you can go Winning Fantasy Football, take you to the same place. Winning Fantasy Football on the Facebook group, and Winning Fantasy Football on YouTube. Because, well, winning is everything. And if somebody tells you winning isn't everything, well, they haven't won anything. So, look, this is my favorite time of year. This is what I do. Let me help you dominate your draft. Let me help you get guys on your team and draft in such a way that people won't know what hit you. And then managing that team throughout the year is such a joy. So please send me questions. I'd love to help you. I have premium content that's available on my website, but I also have for $6, I can help you win your draft. So if it's not worth $6 to you, obviously you got this thing down pat and you're winning your league's championship every year. Don't come to my site.
Yeah. For $6, $6. I mean, for goodness sakes, I think that's what people are getting out ahead to the Lakers. So you do what you got to do. But very, very happy. Go check out Winning Fantasy Football, our Facebook group. Check out all things Winning Fantasy Football, Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com, and of course what Mike has done over the years, WakeUpCallDT.com, and check out our videos on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT. Search fantasy in that, you'll find all our videos. You can also find a full archive will be added to WakeUpCallDT.com to the Fantasy Football tab. So you will never have to miss a live show again because it'll always be archived and you can always connect with it. You have no excuses. Mike and I did an entire season leading into the 2020 NFL season that nobody knew 2 weeks before the season if we were going to have it. Mike and I planned out the entire year. This year, we doubled down for 2021. So you need to be checking this out, listening, reading, watching. You can never have too much information unless somebody's talking about their romantic life behind closed doors and it makes you uncomfortable. But besides that, we don't give you too much. Mike, as always, actually, we give you more than enough and never too much. Always, you can always throw some more. It's like somebody saying to me, do you want 3 chocolate chip cookies or 1? I'll have all 9 if you're going to give them to me. Throw me the chocolate chip cookies. Let's have some fun. So, Mike, as always, I appreciate you, and I appreciate all you do inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour and brought to us here by the Wildcat Sports Pub, and appreciate them so much on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus. I thank you, Mr. Sofka, and I look forward to talking with you soon and appreciate all your time today.
All right. Thank you, Dan. I'll see you next time.
All right, everybody. This has been your special of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on this beautiful Wednesday to start off the first full week of August, getting everything from the Wildcat Sports Pub in this special the Fantasy Football Power Hour, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. And for takeout and catering, call 315 and delivery 315-487-2222. A big shout out to all of our fantastic partners here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora that bring so much to Central and Upstate New York. You got to check them all out. If you haven't been there, go there. If you've been there, go back. And those are the beautiful and wonderful people that you will find at Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. 20% off in Florida or any one of the 50 states by using the promo code DT20 at myandpaspopcorn.com to get your popcorn ready. You're going to sit and watch something at some point in your day. It's always better with a buddy, and your buddy can be Ma and Pa's. So make sure you're there and use the promo code DT20. Honda City of Liverpool, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Pizza Man, Chick-fil-A Cicerone, Chick-fil-A Clay, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicoli's, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, the Millhouse Market, PB&J's Lunchbox, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, and Mother's Cupboard. This has been Wake Up Call. You are amazing, and you can find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. For now, I'm Dan Tortora. That's Mike Sofka, and we will see you very soon. Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Wake Up Call airs for you. And as always, God bless, no stress, do your best. We'll talk soon.